This is structure of my representation. I focus on Sober's reinterpretation of Mayer's distinction, and then that is the distinction. This distinction can be explained by Aristotle's natural state model and normal distribution. Then I argue that the typological and population thinking has two ways of statistical thinking. One is about the law of errors, the other is law of variation. Then I can argue that the typological and population thinking can be as two forms of idealization, like the population thinking and natural selection, and typological thinking about the homology. Then I choose 5 types of bell curves. I think there is a continuum between law of errors and law of variation, and I choose 5 types of bell curves between them. Then through this continuum, I want to reconcile this distinction. Finally, I choose one of a position to reconsidering the 2 statistical models. Yeah, that's in my aims. I just repeat it again. Yeah, just reconciling this distinction from a statistical perspective. That's a law of error and law of variation, and construct a continuum between law of error and the law of variation. Finally, I think the law of error and the law of variation can be understood as 2 different ways of idealization in terms of normal distribution. Yeah. So this is Sober's interpretation. Sober thinks Mayer's definition about what is the real, what is illusion, abstraction, and this concept is not very clear. So Sober used the natural state model to define what is real. He thinks that identify the invariance property of system, which have the causal efficacy. For him, to be real is to have causal efficacy. To be unreal is to be explained away. So, based on the natural state model, typological thinking can be illustrated by the catalate, the law of error. The catalate is a Belgian statisticians, who first applied the normal distribution from physics to social science. Yeah, that's his explanation. The normal explains the normal distribution by law of error. That is, the average is the result of constant causes, while diversity is due to disturbing factors. Yeah, in this way, the individual differences are something to be explained away, and with the uniformity serves as the foundation of diversity. For example, like human population, the height subject to a normal distribution, while the average represent maybe for candidate represent a type for this population, while any deviation from this type as errors due to disturbing causes. Yeah, exactly this way can be found in astronomy or physics, especially. While population is emerged from Francis Galton, who used the first applied statistics to evolution. Yeah, for Galton, the situation is not this case. Is changed. For him, he noticed an unchanged distribution from parents' generation to offspring generation, and explained it by a combination, by a sum of 2 bell curves. Yeah, the one is a decreased variance because the blending heredity or reversion, and other with an increased variance because the family variability. Yeah, about this one, this topic, Charles and some other philosophers about this topic to argue that whether Galton's explanation should be viewed as a kind of autonomous of statistic explanation. Well, my interest in here just focus on how Galton provide a fresh understanding of normal distribution. So I used two statistic exam models to illustrate the law of errors and the law of variations. Yeah, this model is very simple. The wheel of fortune. This fortune was divided by 50 red and 50 black errors. When with numerous spin, we spin the wheel. And finally, the probability of red is approaching to 50%, which intuitively explained by the red section of the portion on this wheel. There are many different factors influence the outcome. Why we think the wheel's structure more important than other factors like initial speed, frictions, and something else. Yeah, Striven has illustrated this by used this graph. We just focus on the two factors. Suppose other factors are in the ideal state, like the proportion of the wheel and the initial spin speed. Like this one, if the spin speed totally from 0 to infinity, then we will get this picture. Then the probability is totally equal to 50%. Which, if the spin speed is not smoothly randomized, maybe like this one is totally rapid oscillating probability distribution, then the probability of red will totally deviate from the 50%. So in this case, the spin speed is regarded as a kind of disturbing factors, and the wheel of the section, the proportion of the wheel as a constant cause explains the probability. But here we can fix the spin speed and randomize the proportion of the wheel. So exactly which factor can be considered as constant cause and which factor should be treated as disturbing factors depends on our chosen model. About the Galton's quincunx is that this is a very famous tools to explain the normal distribution. Yeah, many pellets are dropped from the top to the bottom encounter many pins. When one pellet encounter one pin, then it have a choose to turn left or turn right, and these infinite times that we can get such distribution. That is used Bell in the binomial distribution approximate to the normal distribution. So in this case, when these pellets are independent from each other, then population diversity will be maximized. Variance in this case cannot be explained away as errors. So especially the stability of population can be indicated by the probability P alone when the N is fixed. Yeah, but here what is the meaning of N? We can say is the number of pellets or number of generations. There is And there's a problem here. Yeah, because there are two main assumptions. So we can say the normal distribution is arise from many small and independent causes. Yeah, in this case, the independence is an assumption. So, yeah, what I want to shift Sober's the natural state to the ideal state. Yeah, because the ideal state means that identify the invariant property of processes. But in the ideal state, we don't need to commit such invariant property. The ideal state means, for me, it means is a theoretic construction to represent a system under simplified or controlled conditions. So, yeah, the typological thinking or law of error can be represented by these equations in here, and the population thinking use the equation by this one. Yeah, so here the x in the typological thinking, the x means constant cause, while the I don't know how to pronounce it, the resident or something else. Yeah, this one was viewed due to the errors. There are many factors which are not important in this system. Well, in the population thinking, in this one, the bell curves arise from many small and independent elements. So, yeah, in this page, I just very simplified this topic about the population thinking and how to use the population thinking and natural selection. Yeah, because the price equation is just I very short to quote it. Just the effect of natural selection equal to the average, the character and the this is the strength. This according to this equation, the strength of selection depends on the variance of population. If the variance the variance is big, and the power from the natural selection also is more strong. This relationship between you can use this as this quincunx model to illustrate in which situation the power of natural selection will be optimized when all alleles or genes are independent from each other, and there are many assumptions in here. So also the population thinking in some situation was considered as a way of randomizing the developmental and genetic factors to focus on the power of selection. In this case, we divided population into different types, seems meaningless. This is a quotation of PGS to illustration of this idea. I think I think the grouping population into types is just a convenient tool, but one always choose the finer or coarser grouping, ignore the fewer or more differences between individuals. When the category becomes finer, they may be occupied only one individual in each. Then this does not make evolutionary description collapse. Yeah. So just use the statistical method, describe the similarities in a population without grouping it into types. Another side, the typological thinking and homology. In the evolution, the concept of homology is to explain the evolutionary novelties. Yeah, the homology is the same organ in different animals under very variety forms of functions, like human hands and the claw of cats and it seems they are very different, but they are shared. You can see the same between them. In this case, we can choose distinguish two different concepts: character identity and character state. The same of a character across different species, like that. Just I like the example of human hands and the claws of cat. But the character states, we share the same character identity, but there are different states among them. In here, the character identities represent the conserved anatomic parts across species, regardless the different character states. In here, the stability of character identity is maintained by the conserved character identity mechanisms between the phylogenetic variable positional information and the realizer genes. There is a model here. I also very simplified to talk about them. So we can say the typological thinking in here that serves mathematic abstraction method in traditional morphology and explain the common feature through the underlying conserved mechanisms. Now, and the next step is just I distinguished 5 types of bell curves. Yeah, so I am to bridge the type and population thinking by presenting a method to deposition the constant cause represented by the average into multiple elements that form a stable and yet flexible causal structure, and then into numerous small and independent elements until there are no types at all. So there I distinguish the 5 types bell curve. The type 1 is just a Mayer error in astronomy or else. While the type 2 is just a mean represent a single type. Yeah, just illustrates by the wheel of fortune. So there are 2 examples. One is the genotype and phenotype in classic genetics. Yeah, the phenotype equals to genotype and the environmental factors. In this model, the genotype as a constant cause, the environment influence as a disturbing cause. Also, there is character identity and character state in here. Yeah, the type 3, the mean is caused by several elements that construct a stable causal structure. In here, the variance cannot be viewed as errors like the type 2. Yeah, when there are several elements construct a stable causal structure, which means some part of them can be replaced by others, or like the mutation can cause a subtype. That means that in this case, a population is composed of type and several subtypes and deviations. In here, like the ABC flower model of the arrow beetle pigs. Yeah, like the class A gene and the class E gene cooperate to produce the cell, and the ABE cause the petal, and the BCE cause the stem, and CE cause the carpels. Yeah, they're like the class A genes and class C genes are inhibit each other. Yeah, when each mutation of these different genes will cause different mutation subtypes in them. Yeah, and in this example also can be totally replaced by statistical models. Also, the next one is type 4. In here, a population is totally composed of multiple subtypes with a more flexible causal structure, like human eye colors, examples. Like the human eye colors just is determined by these many genes, and some of them that produce the melanin. And when the melanin is high, we can cause the brown eye. In the middle, it can cause the blue eye. When they're very small, they will cause green or hazy eyes. In here, just a population just composed of a range of subtypes. None of them can be viewed as a type. Yeah. The final case is that the variance explained by the many small independent elements, just as the quincunx model explained. Exactly there. In classical genetics, it also can be illustrated by the polygenic hypothesis. Just there are many complex traits is determined by cumulative effects of many genes, and the effect, then the adaptability, and there is a continuous range of phenotypes, and the environmental factor can influence it. And the example is the human height. The height influenced by over 100 genes. Yeah. Finally, I just use the mathematical equations. Like the type 1 means the X means true quality, while this one means measuring error. And the type 2, like this one, especially the type 3 means, especially in the normal distribution, when one element is not dependent on with others, we all can also use these proportions to explain it. Yeah, there is a theorem talk about this, but I forgot how to illustrate it. Sorry. So in here, in this case, because several elements construct a stable structure, causal structure, means some mutations is not allowed. Some mutations is more possible. So in this case, the distribution not always normal. It may be asymmetry distribution or something else. But we can use mathematical method to change them into a normal distribution or low normal distribution. So in the type 4, there are some of them not totally mutually independent. Maybe some of them connect together, and so this is a mathematical representation of the continuum. So we can see the type 1 and type 2, just two sorts of typological thinking. Type 5 embodies the ideal state of population thinking. Type 3 is a weak form of typological thinking. Well, type 4, on the other hand, is quite a weak form of population thinking. Between the type 3 and the type 4, since there are many flexible between them. Well, there is a question: should we reduce the population thinking to typological thinking in this according to this continuum, or reduce typological thinking to population thinking? I think there are three ways to understand this continuum. We can position the type 1 or type 2 at the center, means the population thinking should be reduced to typological thinking. Just in my examples, most of them talk about the relationship between phenotype and genotype, especially how complex traits emerge from the genetic building blocks, genes. In this way, we can argue that gene or genotype in a more fundamental place, and the population should be defined by genotype in this case. Also, we can understand we can replace all of this example by statistical models. It seems like a constant cause was decomposed into many numerous small and independent factors. In this case, we can view this continuum as a decomposition process. Yeah, I think this position is okay. Also, the second position I think is also okay. Like the positioning the type 5 as the central means view the variance in population in a more fundamental place. Well, just especially in the population genetics, we can say when these elements are totally independent from each other, the variance is the most big. Well, in actually in this condition not satisfied at all. Some of them may be correlated with each other. Then the conserved character identity mechanism appears when these elements not independent from each other. In this case, we can say the type concept should be understood within the population. Yeah, that's Tim Levens said the population concept. Also, the third one is just emphasizing the importance of the buffer zones. Because whatever the species theory about the HPC kind or individual theory, both agree that the biological entities exist both similarities and diversities. We can in this similarity and diversity is balanced because of the underlying reproductive mechanism. Especially, the Suzuki has argued that typological thinking and population thinking in different eras have have different epistemological strengths. Like the typological thinking play a crucial role in the macro or mega evolutionary studies. Especially in this era, we couldn't find the population of fossils, population of these animals. We only can represent them by samples, by the types. On the other hand, population thinking have very high effective at the microevolution scale, especially in the population genetics about it. If we center in the buffer zone, we can integrate the different forms of idealization. If we want to emphasize the variance, we can change the type 3 to the type 5. If we want to emphasize the similarities, we can change the type 3 to type 2 or type 1. Yeah, I think the three ways of interpretation both okay, but I prefer this one. Change what is the constant cause and what is the disturbing cause. Just switch the place. So if the random variable are independent and identity distribution, then this equation can be like this one suddenly can replace like this one. In this equation, we just emphasize the power of natural selection in contrast with developmental constraints. But according to this assumption, we can switch to in this equation. In here, this emphasize the effect of natural selection, but in here just represent the drift in this case. So just in the transition from type 1 or type 2 to the type 5 can be viewed as a process in which a constant factors are gradually randomized into interfering factors, and previous interfering factors are gradually transformed into the constant factors. Here, therefore, I can say the type 5 and type 1 or type 2 and the type 5 are both follow the wheel of fortune model, but the role of about what is interfering factor and the constant factor just have been reversed, depending on the theoretical and practical purpose. Yeah, finally, I have this is my conclusion. First, I give the typological and population thinking statistic interpretation in terms of normal distribution based on Solver's analysis. And then I think that there are not there are two different forms of idealization, and then the calculating law of errors and the Galton law of variation. So, then I distinguish 5 types of bell curves in this continuum to reconciling them. So finally, I just say, since they are in a sense that's the same, they are the same things, just like the two facets of the same coin, because they both explained by the binomial distribution, and in the way of idealization, they just switched the constant cause and by the interfering causes. Yeah, thank you. So 5 minutes break.
Yeah, finish everything. 5, yeah.
Yeah.
So continue at 10 to 3.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're live again.
So, any questions?
I have clarificatory question. So, well, you know, this is not my field, so I'm trying to understand. So, what you're trying to do is to sort of reconcile these two modes of thinking, typological and population. The typological way of thinking is good to think about, like what you said about when you only have elements you only have type specimens, like it happens in anthropology in dinosaur paleontology thinking, and sort of population thinking. In, let's say, when you're trying to do epidemiological research. And so if you're trying to reconcile them because you say that there are some phenomena in biological systems that they don't fit neither of those types of phenomena, like gene regulation, they say that it doesn't really work like types, but neither as population, and so you're trying to reconcile that. That is that sort of the project?
More generally speaking, I just talk about statistical idealization. In the typological thinking, on the one hand, we can use it to represent the biological characters. On the other hand, can be viewed as a kind of causal analysis. In this case, on the other hand, the population thinking seems focused on the diversity within the population. And then if we want to describe the whole population, we should change the population into a distribution. When we focus on the distribution, since we focus on the in kind of a work of statistics about so some philosophers argue that the autonomous of statistics.
Okay. Yeah, it makes so. Can I ask another question? Well, not yet. I'm thinking about it. Someone else can go.
Just a really quick question about the beginning of your talk. You said that when we focus on types, we get discontinuous evolution.
Oh no! When we focus on types, just discontinuous.
Discontinuous evolution.
Yes.
And then we have to reject natural selection.
So why? This is about the historic debate about the discontinuous and continuous revelation, and at that time about the sortationism or orthogenesis, since the evolution should be by suddenly mutation from one type to another. They totally focus on neglect the power selection. And exactly the definition of discontinuous and continuous are different in the two sides. In population thinking, is that the continuous variation, the continuous defined within the framework of population, means the population gradually change by natural selection. Exactly. There have different meaning of the discontinuous is defined by type concept, and the continuous defined within the population concept.
But why in the first case is natural selection rejected?
In partly due to the common sense, because for Darwinism, they think natural selection should be change the population gradually. But after the synthesis between Mendelian and the biometric, they finally the define of in the modern synthesis, the natural selection can be space to change the frequency of gene, change the distribution of gene frequency. In that case, is a continuous process.
I think you have a follow-up.
Yeah, it's the following, because now I'm very confused. Because I thought that the type was a little bit thinking as lineage. And so if you follow a lineage, it's continuous. But population can change very fast, especially through sexual reproduction. Yeah. So often the evolution in the population could be discontinuous. Yeah. So I completely missed the thing. So could you explain that? Because for me it's the reverse.
Yeah, that is because blue eyes, and something else, something like that. In this case, we can divide them into the type or into the subtype.
Okay, but so this, I have this question, but now I think it's the time to ask you because it seems to me that your vision is really gene oriented. It's really gene as cause.
Yeah.
And so of course this genetically is complicated.
Yes.
But is your statistical reasoning robust to, if I think about phenotypes and just irritability and things like that, without the gene behind, to have this dichotomy of the different types?
Yeah, I can replace the example by statistical models, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, just we can say the multi-faced dice, and we can add as the face of dice seems totally more continuous, and when throw it many times seems approximate to, or through some mathematical transformation they can approximate to subject to a normal distribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to me that the distinction between the different types you presented there is a distinction concerning mechanisms at play in the different cases, like genes or whatever it is, and not strictly statistical distinctions. So I don't really have a statistically different situation in the sense that, I mean, when I have a bell curve that is, I would say, always due to the fact that I have indeed many independent causes that combine with each other. If I take the type where we had, as you said, the one main cause and errors, I mean, I think this could be the case where I have, I'm not a biologist, but let's say one specific gene that produces an effect, and then possible errors in its implementation or expression. I don't know how to say. Well, also in that case, the Gaussian shape comes from the fact that in the errors we have many independent causes that combine.
Yeah.
Together. So in this sense, I say the characterization across the different types is not a statistical one, but one based on the different mechanisms at play, and that characterize the fact that the different factors in the specific mechanism I'm considering are correlated or uncorrelated, and so on. Is it like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in just see the question. Yeah.
The gas law is a type tree.
Is that?
The gas law is a type tree.
I don't remember exactly what was type tree, but
in the population genetics, we always use the type 5 as a standard example to modelize the natural selection. This is a parallel to the gas theory in physics. Just suppose the many atoms are independent from each other, like
yes.
Yeah, in this case. But in this case, but in the history of statistics, we can see there in sometimes we use the use the statistics to do the causal analysis, like the causal model. You can see the type 2 exactly just a standard causal analysis can be viewed as just this factor can be viewed as the external factors that are not important, should not be included in our models. Yeah, and this X or can be replaced by several different factors. Yeah.
No, not the X, but the epsilon, I mean.
Yeah, okay. In this case, so I will say it depends on our model. We say what is should be considered as should be included in the model, which should be regarded as outside in the model. Yes, in this way, it seems it's a kind of causal analysis.
Yeah, so it's a different in the kind of modelization I'm using.
Yeah.
Thank you. At some point when you were on type 2, you said that in this case the variations are explained away, you said. But they are put in the error term here. It's not explained, is it? That they're not really explained, they're just discarded as things that...
Yeah, just we should see through the variance. Yeah.
Okay. So it's not a case of explanation of the variation.
Should be explained away. It explained by the interfering causes. But what is the interfering causes? We may don't care about it.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah.
They are just done away.
Yes.
Not really explained anymore.
Yes.
They are presumed to be non-correlated to anything inside the model.
Yeah.
And I insist on the word presume. That's a basic statistics strategy.
Yes. So also my topic exactly talk about how the statistics used in biology. So exactly this case, I got my idea from the history of the biometry school. Yeah, especially about how they combined their statistic method with mentalism.
Just about your main thesis.
Originally I think it's just a chapter 2 of my thesis, but my committee said I should expand some section into separate chapter. Yeah.
But your main claim here was that those different kinds of statistical tools or ways of thinking are just one in nature. You try to make unity of them and then understand how they are applied in different contexts, or are you just trying to have a continuum without unity?
I think the unification things can be realized by the central limit theory, but it's quite difficult for me. But I just focus on how, in different cases, we use the normal distribution. Like in the typological thinking, we focus on the constant cause and randomizing the disturbing factors. While in the type 5, we just suppose since if the population satisfies the minimalist condition, then we can use the type 5 and to model the natural selection. Yeah.
So you have a population of statistics.
Yeah.
With one type, the bell curve, and the variations.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I have another question, but more general, it's not related directly to your work. The distribution that we see in biology concerning, for example, populations and are always Gaussian distributions, basically. They're all bell curves, because, also in physics, it is generally assumed that Gaussian is the most relevant kind of distribution, but you have some phenomena like diffusion or energy dissipation where you have Lorentzian curves. And I was just curious to know whether there is some kind of monopoly in biology for what concerns the Gaussian distribution, or there are also other relevant distributions concerning population dynamics.
I know some philosophers who argue the autonomous of statistical explanation focus on like the T distribution or Caspar distribution, or something else. For them, they argue that if the population subject to some kind of distribution, we can use the statistical method, like focus on specific distribution and apply them. But in my case, I will say that the central limit theorem serves some can change the non-normal distribution into normal distribution and keep the mathematical traceability like this. So I agree. I agree. There are many other kinds of distribution, but I will say like at the type 3 and the type 4, they are totally not normal distribution at all. But we can change them into normal distribution and keep we use them with the mathematical tools to keep the prediction or explanation.
Okay, thanks.
I would just like to add to this thing that it seems to me that, of course, usually it ends up with some kind of normal distribution, but as it was already presented, for example, in genetics, you also have quite a lot of discrete distributions with discrete states, which I think is very common in genetics, and this is how genetics studies. But this is maybe, in some physical fields you also have them, sometimes you not, but it's also very present. And sometimes in genetical statistics, if the traits are qualitative, then of course,
And even if in time, it's usually you converge towards something to a normal.
Yes.
But at the beginning, for example, in the case of genetic drift, it's temporal. So at the beginning, it's not normal. When the population break randomly for whatever reason, there's no reason that they break it to normal curve. But of course, it will tend to a normal curve, especially in the sexual reproduction, pretty fast. So there's a mechanism there also. It's not just a statistical effect or a prejudice of the researcher.
So there is whether there debate about the statistics, just to say the autonomous of statistics, maybe whether agree exists such autonomous, statistical autonomous.
Can I ask what the thesis is? The thesis of autonomous of statistics. What does it say?
I'm sorry.
You referred a lot to this the idea of statistic being autonomous from
Andre or Real, and some other philosophers, they argue that the statistic autonomous, they think from the Francis Galton, specifically about the Galton explains the intergenerational stability. Seems is that keep the statistic autonomous just refer to the statistic scenes without commit any underlying mechanisms. They think there is such explanation.
Okay. That you don't need causal elements to explain the statistical effects that you see.
Exactly. I don't want to involve this topic.
But that's what the autonomous thesis says.
The statistics is explanatory
in itself.
Like they say, is by the correlation or regression, some specific statistic themes like the regression concept is totally statistics. So it's just two variables not perfectly correlated, just two variables correlated with each other. Depending on the correlation, we can do some explain or predict. Yeah.
Yeah, so the way I understood this classification of different types is that we have this statistical phenomenon of bell curve, and then we use different statistical models to try to understand, to do our inquiries. And you also mentioned that sometimes where in different disciplines, we may have different types of data, and we may be in different sort of epistemical situations. And that's why, for example, at paleontology, you would use typological thinking just because you don't have an access to population data. And I was thinking whether there is an asymmetry between populational and typological thinking, in the sense like that in the case of paleontology, one can say that, of course, populational thinking is better, but we just don't have this data. So this is why we use typological thinking. Or it's something like these are two independent ways of thinking. They should be equal. It's just that sometimes one works better than the other.
Yeah, I will say it just depends on your model. In some case, we can define the population concept by type concept, like the Mendelian population. A population is composed of genome types, like this one. Also, we can say the type concept can be defined by the population concept, just as Tim Levens argued the population type concept. So, there is a relation between individual trails, genes, and populations, like 4 points of a triangle, 4 corners of a triangle. We can define the population through the trails, just things like type. Okay, I just draw a picture here. Like these individuals and the population, trails, and genes. Since we say the population is an aggregation of individuals, is the basic means. But also the individual can be analyzed into trails. So we have this one, and the trails explained by genes. This one. So in the Mendelian population thinking, sorry, my mistake. The Mendelian population, we define the population by genes, and the genes seems like genotype. Also the trails, in some philosophers argue that there is a trait fitness in the population level, that the natural selection as a population level causal process. Like in here, they use this one. Also, we can define individual by genes. We can also have this one. So it's quite depends on how you model it.
But for me, it's really the old biology is like that.
Yes.
Because of course,
yes.
With current genetics,
it's
more complicated.
In current genetics, I think the individual, just like use my the discussion of bell curves. The individual is composed of many different trails, and these trails can be correlated with each other. So then so there is not totally analyzed into this way, and also this is not
that line is super complicated.
Yes, each are very super complicated. But in our theory, we always simplify them. But my basic idea is like this one. We can talk about different level type concepts.
I wanted to ask the concept that you have of buffer zones. I didn't understand if that's one of your proposals, or you take it from Soper, or where does it come from?
It's come from by today's evolutionary, special or extension of modern sciences. Like they focus on the buffer zone.
Okay.
Yeah. Any questions? So, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.